Okay, I'm going to give it a go with the machine and see what mess I can make. Right. There we have the tail. The wife approves it, and this will be enough for this video. On our next video I'm going to start doing the grooves in for his hair or fur, lines in his tail, and we'll get that all sorted out first. Maybe a little bit of fine finishing there and all this, but once I get up into that situation I'll let you guys watch me do a little bit of the tail so you can see what I'm doing, and then after that I'll fill in all these little gaps. I'll just go and get the glue. So here we have it. I don't know if you can pick up in the picture, but I have been put the feathering in the fur to give an appearance that is how his tail looks, and I have got some pictures that I'll show you which will be coming up just about now, just to give you an idea of what I'm trying to chase on this calf here. I did not start from the beginning because showing me starting off the carving, because I felt I didn't want to put any film on that showed that I was a complete mug, didn't know what I was doing. Well, I don't know what I'm doing, but what happens when you're carving, you fill into a mode that you can understand, and then you do some things, you can actually get into the mood of the calf, and you start figuring out how it's going to look. And I feel that I sort of have got the tail looking similar to what the dog looks like too. If you look at the photo, this section up here, I'm preparing it, and what I'm doing, I'm hollowing this section out here, and then I will then start putting the finer details of the thing. In a spot here, he doesn't have large cleavages, I suppose that'd be a word to say, you know, hollowing out sections, and it's pretty fine from there to there. There's a lot of them, but as I get up there, then we'll start getting some bigger ones up here, gaps in the fur, and hopefully I can put those in. And it's all about getting the feeling. And of course what you got to remember is when I did do this, I did hollow it out in the middle, and I gave about 10 mil land between the hole and the outside of this piece of wood, so I know how much I can go down. And even here down the bottom here, where I've got larger slits and all that in the wood, I allowed for the distance from the hole centre to the wood on the outside, and so far we haven't disappeared into the hole on the inside. As this comes up, we'll get this all shaped around. I'll leave it at that. I have a few words to say when I'm doing this carving, and just give you an idea what I am doing. The carving actually runs for about 8 minutes. I'll speed it up when I'm not talking. You can get an idea of what's happening. First of all, the tool I'm using, probably very inquisitive about that. What you got to understand, that's very hard wood that I am chiselling, and the wood is Melaleuca, that's the coastal Melaleuca that grows along the coast here, all the way down, right down around the bottom end of Australia virtually. And actually it's quite a nice wood if you can dry it properly. And they did use it for axe handles in the very early days. They used to shape them up. And so I'd give it a go and see what it would be cut like, because I think it would be nice close grain. And plus I had colours in the wood that was quite interesting, which could be good for the tail. Since I found out that it's okay, but it doesn't seem to run its colour the full length of the piece of wood, so there is a little discrepancy there. But nevertheless, it's still a nice wood to carve, but it's hard. It's hard, and that's why I use a reciprocating chisel. That reciprocating chisel I acquired, and it's got a flexi shaft which joins into the reciprocating handpiece, and that makes work much easier. Now, as you can see, the chips are coming off very nicely. As long as I don't try and bog it down, you know, it's these reciprocating chisels are not made to take large continuous cuts, because they do heat up, and of course the cam gets a little bit hot and starts to wear. I quite often do strip that apart, and I think I will on a video how they work and what you've got to do to make them last. You know, they might be made in China, but I tell you what, everything's made in China these days, and sometimes they don't quite finish them off, and I'll show you a little few tricks that can make them last for a long time. And I'll show you what happens if you don't do the things straight away when you first get them over or receive them. But anyway, saying that, I have two hand pieces of reciprocating chisels, and one's got a different type of chisel in each, and they are quite useful. And plus it gives one hand piece when it gets a little bit warm, but that's if you're working really hard. They get really hot, and that's when you can damage them. But it's a good idea to change them over. Although when you see in this 8 minutes I'm doing this carving, I did not relent on the hand piece at all. But I wasn't trying to force it or anything like that, and it wasn't warming up anyway, so that's a win-win on both occasions there. On occasions you will see me run my fingernail across the chisel edge or the cutting edge. The reason why I'm doing that is to check to see if it's been dulled, and usually you can feel that it's dull, or you can feel like there's a little chip, maybe you could call it a chip, out of the chisel, and it doesn't take much before you start tearing the wood. I always like to keep it. I feel like it's getting a little bit too heavy, I will check it straight away, and then I'll stop the machine, and then withdraw the reciprocating handpiece, and I'll take it over, and I will run it across a sharpening edge just to smooth it up again, and if I haven't damaged the chisel. And so far it's been working out really good. Those are the chisels that do come, well, that chisel comes with the hand piece, with the yellow hand piece. I've got another hand piece which is twice as expensive, but I think it's exactly the same. It's made in China anyway, so you know, that come from America, and I see on eBay that they have the same chisel which comes out of China. So it's probably the same company. It actually looks exactly the same parts and all that, so except the outer casing, it's a bit different colour and different material. But as I say, if you look after them, they'll last long, fair while. And longevity is the name in this game with any of your tools you have. If you keep them sharp, you don't have to sharpen them very often. You know, if you rub them up to keep them smooth, and you know how to sharpen up, keep a nice polished edge, you will never have any problems carving, and you'll be able to go across the grain, no trouble at all. And as you can see, I'm going across the grain there, and I'm just taking a polished cut each time, which is what you're supposed to do. And try and keep your depth the same. That's why it's best to use two hands, one to hold the chisel, one to guide the chisel point. And that way you have good control of your chisel. And even when you're using a hand chisel, you do the same thing. The support that you use with your hands is to stop you making a mistake, cut yourself with the chisel. Another thing with this chisel, you have to push it in very, very hard before it starts cutting. So when you're doing a chisel job, you don't want to do the motor off. You can run your finger over the cutting edge, no trouble at all. You're safe as. It's up to you if you want to turn the motor off. But very little chance. There's no chance, unless you're really stupid. Hold the chisel over your finger on the workbench and then give it a go. You can cut it off, no trouble at all. So, give it a little common sense, and you should do very well with the chisel. This is what it looks like now. I have not sanded the back, lightly sanded the back at least, and there's no seal or anything on it. I'll wait until afterwards to sort out this problem. Oh, well, it's not a problem. It's to sort out what it looks like. It'll show in better detail. It's a bit hard when you use fluorescent lights. That's what I'm showing. Video of progress from the tail to his rear flanks or his flanks, and finishing those off. So it takes time, but it's worth it in the end. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I'll just discuss a little bit about these reciprocating chisels that I use. And actually they're quite an interesting item, but you must keep them sharp. And I'll go into a bit of detail too after I've shown you the hand press what you must do to make them last a little bit better. I'll show you how to sharpen up or keep a sharp edge on the chisels. Once you keep them sharp, and as long as you don't drop them on the ground or anything like that, they will stay sharp for a fairly long period. And you know when you're getting dull because it starts to tear at the wood when you go across the grain. But usually it's just let the chisel get very blunt to do that. So I give it about a quarter of an hour, half an hour, and then I just give it a quick rub. And it works out wonderful. All you have to do is disconnect the reciprocating chisel, and you can leave the chisel set up in the reciprocator, and off you go sharpening. The two tools I used on this job were a V tool and a half round tool, the small ones. A half round tool for whittling it away a little bit quicker, a bit easier to, as you'll find out when you chisel, using a half round chisel is very good for that type of thing. And then the V tool for making the grooves. That was just turned out quite alright, I thought. Anyway, what do you reckon?